What I'm finding out as I travel across the state of Indiana and talk to Hoosiers, this health care program, so-called Affordable Health Care Act, which is anything but affordable, is having an enormous negative impact on the decision of employers, on health care providers, on average citizens, relative to what is coming down the line here within the next several months and into the year 2014. It is a colossal mistake of legislation. It is a mess. It is distorting this economy. It is keeping people from out of work. It is keeping employers from being able to hire new workers. People are trying to manipulate the system now because what is being imposed on them is draconian and unsustainable and unaffordable. And that's why we need to officially call this the unaffordable comprehensive health care reform rather than the Affordable Act. It's unaffordable. But that's not why I came here today. I came here today to talk about our current fiscal crisis. You know, that's sort of taken a back seat to the debates that we've been having here on the floor, even though they are necessary. Immigration coming up, Farm Bill that we're currently dealing with, gun issues, and others. But the looming dark cloud issue, the big bear in the closet, is our fiscal crisis, and it's not going away. Now, last Friday, the Social Security and Medicare trustees issued their annual report on the long-term financial status of the health and retirement security programs. And there was a little bit of good news. That is that the current numbers that exist out there and the rate of spending down on these programs has slowed somewhat. But it's not the kind of news that we ought to celebrate. Some are saying, oh, well, that just takes the pressure off. We don't need to do anything about structural reform for our mandatory spending for our entitlement programs because, look, I mean, we just had a good report here. So let's just get back to regular business and we'll worry about this later. Well, the fact remains that the mandatory spending is not only unsustainable, it is having an immediate impact and will continue to have an even greater impact on other functions of government that are deemed essential and necessary, because as the cost of funding for the mandatory systems continues to rise and dramatically in future years, with 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day. Let me repeat that. 10,000 baby boomers are of retirement age each day, adding to the cost of Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security. Now, we've known that this was coming for years. We've known it's been coming for decades. That amazing number of people that were born post-World War II, now to the point of retirement. And we've known this ever since. It's had an impact on our economy, whether they were babies needing more cribs and diapers, or whether they were young children going to elementary school, we needed more schools, going to secondary colleges and universities to expand those, working their way through the economy, having children, dramatic impact with this bulge, and the administration has repeatedly said, we'll deal with this later. It's a crisis, we know, but it's just too tough to deal with now. And what I'm afraid of is that this latest report that came out, which provided a little bit of relief, a little bit of wiggle room, but did nothing to solve the long-term problem. Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office reported earlier this year that spending on the mandatory programs and interest on the debt, because we have to borrow to cover this cost, will consume 91% of all federal revenues 10 years from now. Already, it's putting the squeeze on discretionary spending, because what this means is that all other spending priorities are being squeezed out by spending on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and some of the other mandatory programs. If you are interested in a strong national defense and maintaining that, in a solid education system and maintaining that or growing that, infrastructure or bridges, paving roads, medical research, food and drug safety, homeland security, border security, which is absolutely needed and we're going to have to spend more money on if we're going to go forward with the immigration reform, and many other programs. So whatever your interest is, and whatever demands there are in terms of the need for effective and efficient and yet necessary federal programs, these are every day getting squeezed in terms of the amount of resources available to do this. Why these groups don't form a coalition and come marching to the halls of Congress here and demand that we take the actions now on this runaway mandatory spending because it's simply wiping out their programs, is beyond me. But it is the nature of the political beast to postpone the tough stuff, to not have to get to the point where they have to tell anybody no because we want everybody to love us so they'll vote for us in the next election. It is incomprehensible that we continue to put this off day after day, month after month, year after year, election after election. How many times, I've been around a while, how many times have we heard people say, we will do that after the next election? And that was the mantra in the 2012 presidential election. Well, no, you see, the president couldn't step up and do this, and the ruling party couldn't step up and do this because we had a presidential election, and this is no time to do that now. But you know, as soon as that takes place, then we will have a period of time here where we have been reelected to office or we have new members coming in, and we won't have the pressure of an election before us, and we'll address this problem. Well, here we are now into the 6th month of this year, when everyone knows that the first 100 days of a new administration, or a repeated administration in this case, is the best time to enact long-term, good legislation that addresses major problems. Slips sliding away. The days are counting, and we continue to debate and talk about and interject issues here that, yes, have importance, but don't begin to rise to the level of importance of the need to address our fiscal situation. Now, the other thing I don't understand is why the young people of this country aren't standing up and demanding that we take action, because we are taking money away from them. We are diminishing their future. We are leaving them with a debt burden that they may not be able to pay. The International Monetary Fund put a report out recently that to cover current obligations for young people, we will have to pay they will have to pay, they, not us, they will have to pay either 35% more in taxes to keep these mandatory funds alive and solvent, or receive 35% fewer benefits. And this is at a time when our nation's youth already face an unemployment crisis. It's unconscionable. It's immoral for us to defer and to delay and simply say, well, we can't take care of that now, and then move on through our life, reap the benefits of that come from some of these programs, and then hand it over to our children and say, good luck. You're either going to pay a third more in taxes or you're going to get a third less in benefits. Lifetime savings, Social Security for your retirement, health care coverage for your later years. Good luck with that one, but we just couldn't summon the will to do it. We just couldn't bring ourselves to make the hard choices. I would ask unanimous consent for an additional 3 minutes.
Without objection.
Mr. President, thank you. Are we going to step up to the plate and be responsible? What is our legacy going to be here for those of us who are serving now? What are we going to tell our children and grandchildren? Sorry, just weren't able to do it. You know, it's too tough politically. Worried about the folks back home. They might not take it the right way. You know, this requires a little bit of sacrifice. We're going to reform the programs, actually to save the programs before they go broke. But no, we just couldn't do it. President, kind of AWOL on this, hasn't really stepped up. We thought sure that after re-election, not being elected again, yeah, we will get some kind of leadership. I see it slip sliding away. away. And now we are faced with that ultimate day of crisis when it hits, and we have to make painful choices because we have no other choice. So why don't we take the rational approach? Why don't we have the leadership that steps up and basically says, this is what we need to do? And why don't we put the interest of the future of America and the interest of the future of our children and grandchildren and succeeding generations ahead of our own political interest? It's selfish not to do so. I think it's unconscionable. I think it's immoral for us to continue doing this. So I'm going to come down here as much as I can. Been doing it all year. I'm going to continue to urge the president to work with us. I'm not making this a partisan issue. We're working with people across the aisle that understand this, want to do something about it, but we know we can't get it done without the president taking leadership and standing up and working with us. There's a little bit going on right now, but here we are 6 months later, and we're really not making the progress that we need to make. And in the end, maybe we'll pass some kind of tepid piece of legislation, a little patch here, a little patch there, cover the scratch. We'll deal with the big thing later. We just can't do it now. For the sake of the future of this country, for the sake of the future of our children and grandchildren, for living up to our sworn oath to do what we need to do to continue this great story of democracy in this nation, we need to step up and do this. These reforms are necessary. We all know it. We know the numbers. We know it's unsustainable. We know we must address it. And Mr. President, I just urge my colleagues to do whatever is necessary to make the tough choices. Interestingly enough, that legacy, if we stand up to do it, will be worth whatever results or consequences come from our making these decisions. Mr. President, with that, I yield the floor.